Straight all day.
You are now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic, as promised, is part 2 of 3. This 3-part series on business building myths. I've already given you the background on this, so I don't have to give you background. But before I get started on the second set of myths that need to be exposed and stomped out, first of all, let me tell you, I have a daily motivation text I send out free of charge every single day to everyone who's in my text community. This is a message guaranteed, yes, guaranteed, to keep you focused, sharp, and on point. I would assume that you want to receive that. So here's what you do. Text me at this number, 305-384-6894. And every morning when I send that text out, starting tomorrow morning, you'll be receiving that message. You can even respond to those texts and might even get a response back from me, because I do take time every day and go through my texts and see what people are saying and respond back to some of them. So text me at my number. Again, it is linked down below in the show notes or description. Secondly, workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where you can take the next step in the work on your game world. That's where you get access to 20 plus courses like Bulletproof Mindset 2.0. That's our most popular course. The next mission course, the Work on Your Game system. Work on your game is not just a slogan or a catchphrase. There is a whole system to working on your game. There's a Work on Your Game system manual you can see above my shoulder if you're watching this on video. There's the 30 Days of Discipline course, the ASAP Confidence course, my time control course called 25 Hours, and more, all at workonyourgameuniversity.com, along with my coaching programs, along with the 2 physical mailings, the Black Book and the Bulletproof Bulletin I send out every month. Again, workonyourgameuniversity.com. Now, with all that out the way, let's get into the topic, which is part 2 of 3, the business building myths that you need to know what they are, and you need to make sure you are not falling victim to these myths. We're picking up from where we left off yesterday, so we're on point number 4. Here's the myth. Remove yourself from the conversation as quickly as possible and let the business be the main entity. This is a myth, depending on how your business is set up. Whether you are an entity-driven business, such as, let's say, a company like Apple, or an individual-driven business, such as someone like myself, or any other thought leader or influencer, people who write books, have courses, they have podcasts, they do speaking gigs, any like known person on the internet, you want to keep the story of whether the entity, whoever the entity is, whether it's you as a person or the company, you need to keep that story involved in the conversation a lot. I actually talked about this as a myth in the brand building section as well, because this applies to brands and businesses. And here's why. Human beings connect to people and connect to stories much more than we connect to stuff and information. I want to say that sentence again, because this is a very important point that you should keep in mind when it comes to building your brand. Human beings connect to people and stories more than we connect to stuff and information. I told you in episode number 2426 that your business is about relationships. It is not about stuff. In episode 2147, I talked about the things that are more important than the stuff that you sell. Even though you probably believe that ostensibly your clients and customers are paying for the stuff. They're paying for your product, your services, your course, your coaching program, the transformation that they're going to get, the outcome. Yes, they are paying for those things, but guess what? If they don't connect to your story and they don't see any of themselves in you, they don't find any type of common ground between your story and what's going on in their minds, they're not buying from you, even if your stuff is amazing, because there has to be some connection. There are people listening to this show right now that if you didn't see any connection between the stuff that I talk about, or the way that I talk about it, or the things that the opinions that I've shared. Again, it doesn't have to be you have to have the same background. You don't have to be a basketball player. You don't have to be male. You don't have to be black. You don't have to be from the neighborhood that I'm from. You don't have to be any of those things, but you have to find some kind of common ground between the way that I express things and the things that I have talked about, and the things that you, and the way that you see things, and the things that you talk about, and or maybe you think about them, but you don't say them. There has to be some kind of connection. If you don't see see that connection and there's nothing connecting us, even if my stuff was amazing, you're not buying it. Why? Because you don't connect with me. Human beings connect with things on an emotional level first, then we come up with a logical justification for that emotional connection. This applies to all humans, and even though some people are more empaths, as we say, they're more emotionally expressive than others, it still applies to everybody. So your story is a huge piece that allows you to make a connection to other people. And here's the thing, that if your story and who you are as a person builds a strong enough connection with a person, the connection of your stuff doesn't even need to be as strong, because the story is so strong that people will connect with that, and the stuff doesn't even have to be that good. I talked about this again, those 2 episodes that I just referenced. Make sure you check out episode number 24, 26, where I talked about the relationships matter more than the stuff. If you are an individual driven business, especially such as any of you who's an influencer or you plan on becoming an influencer, you want to be sharing your story and sharing yourself as much as possible, because this is what people actually connect with, and this is what keeps people around you. They want to know your story. They want to know what you're about. This is why a platform like, actually all platforms, I don't know if TikTok has it, but Snapchat has what is it called? Snapchat story, Facebook stories, Instagram stories. YouTube, I think, even has stories. But why do they have the stories there? Why? Because people, that's what social media is driven by. Social media is all about you sharing your business with the world and other people wanting to know about your business. And when I say your business, I don't mean like the product you sell. I mean like what's going on in your life on a day-to-day basis. People want to know what you're doing. People want to know where you're going. They want to know that you just worked out. They want to know what you're eating for lunch. They want to know what kind of shoes you're wearing today. They want to know what random thoughts you have when you're riding in your car to the grocery store. People want to know this stuff. Now, some of you look at that and say, why would anybody care about that? That sounds so stupid. That's so dumb. Why do people post that, and why do people want to know about it? I don't know why. Somebody can do a deep dive on that in a book or something. I'm sure there have been plenty written, but people want to know. People want to know what you're about. And when people are following your story, the more someone follows your story and the more they hear it, the more they feel like they know you. And when people feel like they know you, even if they don't actually know you, but if they feel like they know you, they're more likely to stick around in your world and more likely to pay you. They're more likely to buy stuff from you and give you money. And you're in business. So if this works for you to generate business, hey, use it. You might not be able to explain why it makes sense, but hey, if it works, it works. I mean, remember what business we're in, folks. We're in a results-based business. So if this works, it works. I'm not a person who goes and looks around and follows somebody. I'm not looking at anybody's Instagram stories for the most part. I might browse through maybe to see if I can get an idea or something, or just so I can get a clue about what a person is talking about. But I'm not looking at people's stories on a daily basis. But there are people who do look at other people's stories on a daily basis. Why? Because they're looking for something to connect to. The interesting thing about the internet, and I'm in the process of reading a book right now. Let me see what it is. Well, I'm listening to this audio book called Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. And one of the things that he talks about in the research that he did for the book is that the more people use social media to connect to, or what you want to call connecting with other people or following other people and communicating, the less they actually connect with people in real life. So this internet connection, or whatever you want to call it, that people are building has actually replaced for many people a lot of actual physical, in-person, real life connections. And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. I mean, that's part of the thesis of his book, is that it's not a good thing that this is happening. And there have been many other books written on it. There was another one that I can't remember the name of it. I already read it. I can't remember the name of the book, but the guy who he used to work in, I think his name is Tristan Harris. He wrote about this. He's written articles, might have even written a book about it. And I think I read it. I can't remember the name of the book. I read so many books. But anyway, he's talked about it, how the social media apps, they're driven by engineers who are very smart people who know exactly what they're doing to get you hooked on these things. And it's basically replacing connecting with people in person to connect with them on the internet. And that's not necessarily a good thing. I've talked about this many times here on the show. The point being, though, I'm not talking about the ethical concerns of it right now today for the context of this episode. What I'm talking about for the context of this masterclass is that you, as an influencer, especially those of you who are influencers, understand that this is what's happening. Whether you agree with it or not, it's happening, and you might as well leverage it to your advantage, because people are looking for you telling them what you're about, what you're doing, where you're going, what you're eating, what plane you're getting on, what kind of shoes you're wearing today, some random thought that you had when you were crossing the street. They want to know this stuff. Why? I don't know, but they want to. And the more of it you share, the deeper connection people feel like they have with you, even if it's completely superficial, and it will lead to them doing more business with you. Now, I don't know, is that evil for me to be telling you that's true? I don't think so. This is just what it is. I didn't create it. I'm just reporting it to you. So that's what it is. So be telling your story over and over and over again. So I'm talking about story in two different senses here. Story being who you are, where you're from, how you got here, why you are how you are, your philosophy, that kind of story, big picture. And then in the micro, I'm talking about your story, like what are you doing today, where are you going, next airplane you're getting on, somebody messed up your order at the pizza shop, that story too, the micro level. So be telling your story, because why? There are people who are out there who are bored, who ain't got nothing better to do, and they want to know what you have going on because they don't have anything going on. So that's what it is. Point number 5. Today's topic, once again, we are talking business building myths. This is part 2 of 3. Point number 5. Here's another myth. Do not let your customers or clients be in direct contact with you, because they will abuse the privilege, and or they may come to not see you as big of a star as you want to present yourself as. This is a myth. Not always necessarily false, but it is not 100% true, which makes it a myth, because it's the truth and the whole truth. Here's the thing. This is one can sometimes be true, but it's not always true. So it depends on who you're serving, how you're serving them, and at what level you want to serve them. It also depends on what their needs are and what agreement you have with them about communication, or what you want to establish as far as your availability in communication. So if we go back to the earlier example I talked about this yesterday. If you had 10 clients, right? You have 10 clients who are paying you $100,000 each per year, which multiplies out to $1 million in revenue for you. I don't think any listener who's hearing my voice would have a problem with each of those 10 people having a direct line to contact you. If somebody's paying you $100,000 a year, would you be okay if they had your phone number and they could text you or message you or send you a voice message whenever they felt like they needed to? If they're paying you $100,000 a year, would you be okay with responding to those messages? I think so. Whereas on the other hand, if you're selling $4.99 programs to people, like I was when I first started my business, you probably wouldn't want each one of those people who are paying you $5 to have a direct line to you. So it depends on the nature of your business. A lot of these come to, it depends on how you are running your business and how you want your business to be run. The challenge for a lot of people, and the reason why it's a need for this discussion, is that a lot of people have not thought out how they want their business to be run. They're just out here doing stuff and hoping that it works out in a positive way. All right, hope is not a strategy, folks. So there'd be a lot more people, if you got $5 people able to contact you, and they will probably be a lot more needy, despite the fact they spent a lot less money. That's the paradox of business. For those of you who have been in business long enough, you know this to be 100% true. The more money someone invests with you, actually the less needy that they are. Many of you might think it'd be the opposite. You would think if somebody gives you more money, they become more demanding and they want more of your time and they're more of a headache, but it's actually the opposite. The less money someone invests with you, the more they believe they are entitled to, the more of a headache that they become, and the less you actually want to talk to them. So this is an argument for why you want to raise your prices and deal with higher level people. And usually the higher level people are people who spend higher amounts of money. This is just how it works. And if you don't believe me, just get some seasoning in business and you'll see for yourself. And then you can come back and let me know that I was right all along. So it's a paradox of business that the people who are the most invested, meaning they have put the most financially into whatever it is that they got from you, they are usually the least needy, they are the easiest to work with, and they usually actually get the most results. Why? Because they are the most invested. When people are invested, they get results. When people are only a little bit invested, they get a little bit of results. This is just how it works. I'm not saying that this is 100% true across the board for every single individual, but as a general rule, this is 100% true. Ask anybody who's been in business for 5 years or more, they will tell you this. Full time for 5 years or more, they'll tell you this. Point number 6. Today's topic, once again, we are on part 2 of 2. These are business building myths that some people have been told and some people have even come to believe, but I'm going to fix that over this series. Number 6, ignore the competition. This is a myth. It's a myth to ignore the competition. While I am an advocate of paying less attention to what other people are doing, I 100% advocate for that. Do not be looking at what everybody else is doing all the time. You need to put the majority of your focus, let's say go back to the 80-20 rule, on what you're doing, 20% at the most on what anybody else is doing. Doesn't mean that you pay zero attention to what else is happening in the world or in your space or whatever. Doesn't mean you pay zero attention to it. Don't do that. Listen, you can utilize what you glean from the competition when you notice what they're doing, and you can glean it and look for ways to get ideas for yourself, ways that you can look for the weaknesses in what they're doing, the gaps that you can fill in what they have going on, and also you can find ways to collaborate with other people instead of competing against them. So sometimes when you look at the competition or what you consider to be your competition, you might notice that they're doing a certain thing that could help your audience, and you're doing a certain thing that could help their audience. And if you two collaborated instead of competing, you could both make more money, and you could both serve everybody better than how you're serving them now. You can serve everyone at a higher level, each of you, if you two decide to work together instead of working against each other. Remember that we're in the era of collaboration. We are not in the permission economy anymore. It's still competition out there. There will always be competition, but this is the collaboration economy. I talked about this in episode 2293. It is now the collaboration economy. We are all collaborating. What am I doing right now? When you listen to this show, the majority of the listeners of the show are listening either through Apple Podcasts or Spotify. What are Apple Podcasts and Spotify? They are platforms that allow for collaboration. They don't create any content. All they do is provide the space for the content, and then people like myself, we put the content up. You go to Apple Podcasts, notice that Apple Podcasts does not have a podcast. They might have one, but the majority of the podcasts on Apple Podcasts are created by people like me. We create the content, they have the platform. That's a collaboration. I'm collaborating with Apple when I put my show on Apple's platform. I'm collaborating with Spotify. I collaborate with Instagram. I collaborate with YouTube. I collaborate with TikTok. I collaborate with LinkedIn. All of those platforms don't create anything. All they do is create the space and the platform for people like me and you to put stuff out. That is a collaboration. This is the era that we're in these days, folks. So you should look at that, notice the way that the wind is blowing, and understand that, and this is a trend. This is not a fad. This is not a short-term thing. This is a trend. This is the way that things are working. This is why social media apps are so popular. This is why you look on your phone, all you see is a whole bunch of collaboration platforms. All these platforms are collaborating. All the Google apps are collaborating. Google doesn't create anything. Facebook does not create anything. All they do is offer a platform for you to create the stuff, and all they do is give you a way to share it. That's it. That's a trend, and this has been going on for a while right now. So you should get involved in this game. Don't always look to compete with your competition. Look for ways you can work with your competition, and everybody can win. Everybody can make more money. Everybody can get more stuff. And don't worry about cannibalizing your customers or your clients, because listen, a buyer is a buyer. People who buy stuff buy stuff. All right, and they're not only buying from you, even if you think they are. They're not. They're buying from other people. So pay attention to what your competition is doing, because you're looking at what they're doing for ways that you can come up with ideas, not just to look at them for no reason. All right, so utilize that stuff. Remember that we are in this collaboration era, and working with each other will produce better results than, again, going head on against each other. So look at the competition, figure out ways you can help them and how they can help you. There may be a great business opportunity in there if and when you are a creative thinker in how you are going about things. So all that said, let's recap today's class. It was part 2 of 2. We are talking about business building myths that you have been taught and maybe you have heard and maybe even come to believe, but we're fixing that here today. Number 4, remove yourself from the conversation as quickly as possible and let the business be the main entity. Don't do this. You want to be telling your story and sharing your story in the macro and the micro consistently. Why? Because people want to feel like they know you. They want to feel like they're connected to you. This is what social media creates, even if you consider it to be artificial or superficial, is a thing that people believe is true. And you can use that to your advantage. Make people feel like they know you because you're sharing your story, not your stuff, but your story. Number 5, don't let your customers and clients contact you directly, as they will abuse the privilege. This is not true. All right, it depends on who you're selling to. It depends on who your customers and clients are. Again, you had 10 clients paying you $100,000 a year. Would you be okay with them texting you? I think you would be. So it depends on what you're selling, depends on how you're selling them, and it depends on what kind of relationship you would like to establish with the people in your audience. There are people who want that kind of connection. There are people who don't. You have to know your audience. All right, this again is part of doing your homework. Number 6, ignore the competition. Now, while I am an advocate of paying less attention to what everybody else is doing, it doesn't mean pay zero attention. Utilize what you see in the competition and find ideas. How can we collaborate? How can we work together? How can you fill the gap of what they're not offering and they fill the gap of what you're not offering, and you two work together and everybody wins in that process? So remember that we're in the collaboration era. This is the collaboration economy. You should be looking for ways to collaborate because this is the trend of the way things are working. Think about something like, you ever go into a Target store and there's a Starbucks inside the Target? What is that? That's a collaboration. Starbucks went to Target and said, hey, how about we put one of our coffee shops inside of your store? You get a percentage. I don't know the actual contract that they have, but I bet it's set up this way. Listen, Target, every sale that we make, you, Target, gets a percentage kickback from every dollar that we make of that Starbucks that's located inside of your shop. All right, that's the way it is. You go inside a grocery store, sometimes you'll see a Starbucks. Starbucks has done a great job of this. What they did is integrate their stores into stores that already exist, and they made money that they otherwise never would have made had there not been a Starbucks inside of those stores. I see Starbucks inside of Targets. I see Starbucks inside of, ever seen them inside of a Whole Foods? I'm not sure they're inside of Whole Foods, but grocery stores down here in South Florida called Publix, I see Starbucks inside of those. You see Starbucks in all kinds of places. These are collaborations. You go into an airport, you see all those businesses inside of an airport. What are they doing? They're collaborating with the airport to get money that they otherwise would not have gotten, even if they have to give a percentage back to the airport. This is the collaboration, and you all need to be thinking this way, not thinking as a competitor to everyone, but as a collaborator with others. There is plenty of opportunity in this, but you got to be paying attention, and you have to be thinking creatively to do this, and you need a strategy to do it, so you can do it in a replicatable, duplicatable way. You're already collaborating with all the social media apps if you create content, so collaborate with other people, and let's collaborate and make some money. All that said, text me, tell me the best insight you got from today's class. My number is 305-384-6894, and go to workonyourgameuniversity.com so you get access to coaching program options, all the courses, and you get as a member of the university, you get 2 physical mailings we send out every month, the Bulletproof Bulletin and the Black Book. You can subscribe just to get those alone. If you just want to get that a la carte, you can subscribe right there. Just go to the page at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all day.